following from last week's investment conference. We've seen a number of people coming to the country. Some of them have been interacting with them since in the morning, asking them if they are coming for the first time, if they've been here, if they're bringing families. And they've been assuring me that, you know what, we feel comfortable coming to South Africa. It's easy to come here. You've got infrastructure in terms of us to be able to move, for us to be able to communicate. So that feedback is important. Almost 2,800 people are here, and those are tourists, literally, coming here to stay. They're contributing to the GDP, they're contributing to the jobs in terms of tourism sector. They're staying in hotels, they're booking flights and all those things. And that's what is important. And our message with them today is to say, while they're coming, we're introducing them to South Africa, those who are coming for the first time, but we want them to come back, but not only alone, but come with others.
Welcome once again. We're continuing our conversation here on Unfiltered tonight, where we're looking at the processes that have been taking place at the Africa Investment Forum that's taking place here at the Sandton Convention Center. And our guest, Adendrele Oni from Microfinance Bank, thanks once again for staying with us. The big conversation on the continent is policy certainty in the different countries, certainly here in South Africa. How do you find, I was talking to Zodwa earlier about geopolitical considerations, how do you find that you are able to traverse the different policy considerations in the different countries on the continent?
Yeah, that is a very important issue, because South Africa is a country that always ensure that you comply. You must comply with the laws. At Richway, corporate governance is our watchword. But our settling in or coming into this market, I must say GGDA has been of tremendous support. They have provided they have been giving us a lot of financial, advisory. When we run into an issue, we go to GGDA. They will guide us on what to do. There have been instances when they will need to make calls to introduce us to people. We facilitate the processes on time.
But how about countries in East Africa, for argument's sake, where Ethiopia will be seen to be very stable, yet Somalia not so much? How do you go through those differences in one region where you're also wanting to do business still?
As I said earlier, this is our third year as a Nigerian bank, and we are still a micro, looking forward to becoming a bigger financial empire in the nearest future. No wonder we are now operating in just two economies, and that is Nigeria and South Africa. And those are the two most important economies or largest economies in Africa, and that is why we have chosen those.
You can't disregard the rest of the continent, though.
Over time,
yeah,
we will definitely be looking at that. Okay. But to take off and to stabilize, to get a nice structure in place, once we can operate successfully in those two economies, then we can succeed in any other economy of Africa.
Mozimatema from the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency. How, as you deal with the different countries across the continent, the people in Gauteng are watching us tonight and wondering, in terms of supporting SMMEs, in terms of job creation, how they can be taken along on this journey of creating wealth, not only for Gautengers, but for the country and the continent as a whole.
So just to dig deep into what it is that the agency does in terms of assisting SMMEs. So the agency basically has 4 subsidiary elements which focus on various sectors. We have the Automotive Industry Development Corporation, which focuses on the auto sector. We have the Innovation Hub, which focuses on the tech innovation space. We have a very important space in the whole world, really. Indeed. We have the Gauteng Industrial Development Zone, which is our special economic zone around the Ora Tambo Center, which focuses on low-value, high-mass, export-oriented goods, agro-processing, jewelry manufacturing. And then we have the Cornhill Precinct. And then within the GGDA holdings company, we also have what is called the trade and investment function. So in each of those elements that I've raised, for example, in the trade and investment function, which was critical in assisting Ridgeway set up here, we run an export development program through our partners in the DTI, and that program is simply designed to assist Gauteng-based enterprises to become export ready. So that's one level. Within each of our subsidiaries, we've got incubation programs and facilitation programs that are focused on SMMEs. For example, at the AIDC, we've got programs that capacitate auto-based OEM SMMEs to plug into the deeper value chain of the global auto value chain. Yep. Within the Innovation Hub, we've got incubation programs that assist our innovation enterprises, as well as a franchise system, which is the ECASI Labs, that's rolled up throughout township. So in each of our subsidiaries, we've got a very strong SMME focus. But to come back to why we are here tonight, so we are here tonight to discuss the Africa Investment Forum.
I just wanted to ask you though quickly, as you're talking about those SMMEs,
yes,
how do you help them to reach scale in an impactful way?
Yes, I think I was getting to that by really coming to why we're here. But for example, so in each of the programs that we roll out in our subsidiaries, they'll be very specific. So for example, in the Innovation Hub, we will assist an entrepreneur from ideation all the way to inception and creating the IP around their project. So we've got very successful SMMEs where, without naming a name, there's a lady who will be a part of our SMME initiative tomorrow, who used to sell a specific hand lotion at church. She was able to sell 2 or 3 per Sunday sermon, but because of the scaling and incubation project that she's gone through at the Innovation Hub, guess how much she's turning over? She's now turning over 70 million per year. Based on that, so that's the level of scalability that she's reached. But because of the various programs that we have, she now has various accesses to the rest of the continent and anywhere where she wants to expand her trade footprint. But as I was saying, just to touch to what it is that we're doing around the African Investment Forum to support the SMME, we have selected top 20 of our SMMEs through our various programs that I've raised to be part of the African SMME Champions, which is happening at the Hilton Hotel beginning tomorrow. It's a complimentary event to this AIF event. So part of that is really to do exactly what the AIF does for large infrastructure, which is unlock bottlenecks and access capital to large infrastructure. But this is directed at SMMEs to unlock bottlenecks and access capital to the SMMEs.
You were talking earlier about the automotive sector.
Yes.
Which other sectors are you supporting? Because you do want to encourage a diverse group of entrepreneurship to come up, especially with a country like South Africa that is so challenged in terms of innovation and creating work for our citizens.
So within our subsidiary, the AIDC, we're focused on the auto sector. Within our subsidiary, the Innovation Hub, we have a strong focus on the innovation sector, bioeconomy, pharmaceuticals, IT-related sector. Within our subsidiary, which is the Gauteng SEZ, the IDZ, we are focused on agro-processing, jewelry manufacturing. We run a very successful Design at 50 school that teaches young SMMEs to become experts in basically jewelry manufacturing. Within the Cornhill precinct, which is also a subsidiary, we have a focus on the tourism SMME. So we cover broadly those areas. But then within the trade and investment narrative I spoke of export development, we don't discriminate on a sector space specific. We basically capacitate an SMME to basically develop and get the export training. But this is just confined to what the GGDA does. If you look broader at what the Gauteng provincial government does, we also run a micro finance entity called the Gauteng Enterprise Propeller. So its role is basically similar to what Ridgeway does, which is to allocate micro-funding to small upcoming SMMEs. This can be a guy who says, nice shoes, by the way, I'm manufacturing shoes like that.
Thank you.
I need 50,000 rand to get to the next order. And then Gauteng Enterprise Propeller will give him an amount such as 50,000 rand, where a bank wouldn't necessarily be willing to fund that sort of thing. So the Gauteng ecosystem, and broadly even the South African ecosystem, is making strides towards SMME development, simply because there's recognition that SMMEs are drivers of industrialization, job creation, and economic development. But we have a crisis in Africa where SMMEs only make 33% of GDP, which is lower than any other place in the world.
Zotombele, the report on the status and progress of infrastructure development on the continent by the African Development Bank points out to four index major indicators: electricity, transport, ICT, water and sanitation, as some of the challenges when it comes to the rollout of big infrastructure projects on the continent. Tell us about the impacts of these four indicators.
I will try and see if I understand your question by answering.
For argument's sake, in
Yeah.
South Africa, when Eskom switches the lights off, it impacts hugely on business.
Right.
But what's the impact on the continental market when we're out of electricity, or when there isn't sufficient transport infrastructure, or ICT is not sufficiently up to standard, or at the moment, we're having challenges with drought in some parts of the country, water and sanitation. How does that impact the development of business, and by implication, the fruition of some of the projects that you're working on at your bank?
Yeah. So I guess I know you are asking a question, but the answer lies in your question in any case, because without any of the catalytic infrastructure development, there will be no economy that is developed. You have mentioned energy as one of the factors. So as we also finance projects, one of the things we consider, for instance, if you think about a water project that possibly does not have a natural gravity, to transport water, you would need to pump it using energy. So one of the factors in your due diligence is to ensure that there's security of energy to pump water through. Otherwise, you'll be building a white elephant. So all these interdependencies needs to be in place. It's part of your due diligence. If need be, part of the project needs to finance a component of that, other infrastructure that is required, or associated infrastructure that is required for the main project that you are focusing on. So we look at the project holistically.
Yeah.
So to promote the project, so we avoid building white elephants.
I know
essentially.
you're a financing arm, but
Right.
how do these challenges impact your work?
So what you also need to understand with the Development Finance Institute, our role does not only end with the financing. There's a lot of advocacy role that we play. There's a lot of the discussions that we have. I'll give you an example. For instance, as a DFI forum, we have decided, our principals have decided that we also need to look into the fragile state. Certain countries that really would not ordinarily attract capital or commercial investment, so to speak. But we play a very critical role together as DFIs with the World Banks in particular, who are providing either funding, when I say IDA, IDA funding with certain conditions, because they want to prepare the country to open up for bigger private sector participation, which will obviously catalyze other capital that can flow into. So it's a very holistic approach, the approach of the DFIs. Unlike maybe a commercial bank, it's just money. Us, it's not money. Until the ground is so fertile enough for us, or conducive enough to attract investment, we play such a critical role. So, and further to that, other than the advocacy role with the policymakers, we also finance projects in upstream project preparation. That's what we normally refer to, projects that can help the project to be taken to bankability where it can address. But that money, it's almost a risk capital. So no commercial funder can provide such funding. So we take that risk, hence we call it a risk capital, to maybe prove some technology that you would be involved in. So there's various reasons why the project is not bankable. So if it's very transformative for the country, as a TFI, that's a role that we play, where we can put in money on a project that we believe that it should be transformative, should it be proven to be commercially viable later.
Because we're having the conversation from outside the studio, it's been a bit of a challenge to track the social media responses to our program tonight, but you're welcome to go onto the SABC news platforms on social media to converse with us about your feelings about the Africa Investment Forum and how it can make a difference in the economy of South Africa and the economies of different countries around the continent. Let's take a break. We'll be back in a moment. All All right, welcome back. You're watching Unfiltered. We at the Senton Convention Center, where the second Africa Investment Forum is currently underway, and we're unpacking some of the conversations that have been taking place here. And we were joined earlier by Muzi Matema from the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency, who has left us for now, but I'm sure we've been able to pick up sufficient information about what the agency does and the kind of support it gives SMMEs in Gauteng. In a minute, we'll also be joined by another SMME participant from a different part of the continent to tell us about their experiences of the investment forum. But let's bring back once again Adenrele Oni from the Microfinance Bank. Adenrele, microfinancing and as opposed to big infrastructure financing, where is the grey area in between that leaves investors and potential innovators dead at sea and not able to connect?
Yeah, there are a lot of challenges funding the micro businesses. One, they want longer term funding. We provide shorter term. They do not have collateral. So how do you secure your loan? They do not have proper books of accounting. How do you assess their financial viability? Pricing for microfinance, even in South Africa, for micro lending, we are looking at a 5% monthly. Can they really afford that? Can the business survive leveraging on a 5% monthly loan? These are some of the challenges.
Yeah, let's bring in our guest. Please introduce yourself as you start to have the conversation. You're part of the SMMEs that are attending the conference, and you introducing your projects to possible investors. Just tell us about what you've been doing today, and if you've been able to secure any investors for your projects.
Yes, thank you for having me today. I'm Mustafa Farhat. I'm from Egypt, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Nafham, one of the startups that working in education sector.
And, in Egypt?
In Egypt, and we're actually supporting students from the Arab countries as a whole. And what I'm doing
So this would be what we consider North Africa?
North Africa, yes, exactly, within Africa, and then Gulf area as well. As part of that, we are supporting the whole region.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Actually, we're here in order to somehow find a collaboration with the African countries, as well as with South Africa for sure. This is one of the things, and networking, and the opportunity to have be among those investors and being able to explain what I'm doing and expose myself to the other Africans, because actually we didn't have this kind of collaboration before. So this is my first time to work and be close to other nations in Africa, which is strange. Because we somehow in Egypt and the North African are more attached to
Europe
areas
and the West.
In Arab countries. So this kind of collaboration would make a lot of change. So for example, I'm looking right now to an opportunity for how can we implement our platform and our solutions, where we help school education, school students to get their studies from using the internet and technology. So what if we can collaborate together with the South African government in order to provide this kind of solution, because we have the knowledge and so on, so we can collaborate in this kind of area. And this is a good opportunity for both of us, for us to expand our reach to other countries, and to implement as well a different language for the platform, and to serve more segment.
Yep. When we speak about these kind of processes, our viewers are looking and wondering, how do you monetize these projects? How do you make them meaningful to economies where they can start to be seen to be having an impact? Tell us about that.
The education is one of the hardest sectors which you can work and at the same time monetize your commercial or find a monetization solution for what you're doing. So we had too many years until we find the right combination of impact and at the same time have a revenue, a business model
generation
that that can work within this sector. So it wasn't that easy. We're still struggling with this combination, but we're somehow started to move towards the target that.
So tell us quickly, how have you found your interactions here today? Have they been meaningful? What are the prospects?
Yeah, very high. I'm very optimistic with this opportunity, and the type of collaboration we had actually a workshop yesterday, which was very organized, was very efficient.
So you think it's a worthwhile platform?
For sure, yeah, and it's also the network of investors with the entrepreneurs from other countries in Africa was a very good mix for the successful of this kind of workshops.
Zoto, a platform such as this, is it worthwhile or is it a duplication of the work that you're doing in the course of your work anyway?
It is not a duplication of the work that we do in any case. As I said earlier on, it's a marketplace. So who wouldn't want to go to the market that provides all the necessary tools that you need for business? So it complements what we do on a day-to-day basis. I mean, if you think about the reach, we have possibly this is it's an 8th month in our financial year. So if you are a deal originator, this is the best place. In here, in the next 2 to 3 days, you would have possibly have potential opportunities, 10 of them, rather than for you to travel. For you to get 10 potential opportunities, you would have to travel.
Taking you a few months to get to.
Of course, and you have to, crisscross the continent in getting even meetings, let alone the opportunities. So it takes a while to develop business because you don't just,
So then how does it take 3 days to finalize conversations?
Because you have so many people that you need, Here's the colleague here, he's from Egypt, he's into education. If I'm looking for educational opportunities to fund in the education sector, here it's available.
Right here.
Right. And it's not only in Egypt, possibly he can provide lists for other countries. If possibly Egypt is the country that we feel maybe it's too far for us, where else does he participate? Maybe we can, participate in other countries outside Egypt. So it just provides you all the necessary tools and the business leads that you need. So it's the best you can have, really.
One big problem has beset South Africa, but it's also a continental and a global problem, the conversation of xenophobia. The South African president spoke about it earlier in the morning when he was opening the conversation with the president of Rwanda, the prime minister of Mozambique, and the president of Ghana. Is it impacting your work?
Yeah, the step the President Ramaphosa have taken actually has been very positive. With a number of advocacy going on, there has been a lot of progress along that line. The issue of xenophobia or otherwise has been a sensitive issue, but we have been working peacefully without any harassment or any challenge from anyone. Interestingly, all the workforce of Richway in South Africa are South Africans. Mm-hmm. I'm the only Nigerian in the company.
Yeah.
So you can see that inter-relationship and friendliness in the company, and that is what we are here to promote.
We have 2 minutes left to wrap the show. Doctor, can we please find out from you if this has impacted your work?
Has impacted
the issue of xenophobia?
It's very difficult to comment how it has impacted our work. Of course, I mean, there's always going to be sentiments, right? If you go to countries,
Yeah.
if people have got
the South Africans have
expressed,
landed.
but not necessarily that it has crystallized in stopping certain deals.
Yeah.
You know, we do talk about it just like we converse about it. That's how much it has affected people, and I don't think we are trivializing. By the fact that it hasn't crystallized into business, it doesn't mean that
Yeah.
it's a trivial matter. It is a serious matter that also the president has addressed.
Sir, and I apologize again that we haven't got your name correctly, but you were talking earlier about the importance of the linkages between North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. What kind of conversations are being held in terms of cohesion?
We tend, actually, when I even met with the Western people, that when they said Africa, they somehow excluded North Africa from the equation. So it was a strange behavior, but right now I really understood what they did before, and we are definitely need to change that. These kind of platforms will definitely help. And I'm sure that not only from, there are some other guys from the North African countries that we need to bring them in.
Yeah.
And share this kind of.
And let me thank you again for coming through to talk to us this evening. Thanks to all of the guests. It's been a lovely conversation. We're here at the Africa Investment Forum looking at the kind of impact that this kind of conversation, this kind of event, this kind of platform has the potential to put out throughout the continent. My name is Desiree Chauke. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Till next Monday, it's a goodbye.